Oh, we're talking about inflation. What an exciting topic. Not when you start talking about inflation when it comes to the store and you're putting food on your table and clothes on your kids' back. Everybody is feeling it. You know, Dr. Walden, we've talked a little bit about some of the areas, housing, gas, and what have you, but ultimately people want to know is how do you fix it? And you've kind of touched on it. The feds play a big role in that, but what would you do? How would you fix the costs of gas and housing and clothing and food? What do we need to do?
Well, one thing I think we don't want to do is to do something that happened in the mid-'70s when President Nixon was faced with a similar situation of rising inflation. He was facing re-election. He imposed wage and price controls. And that did cause the inflation rate to moderate for a little bit of time. But once those controls went off, it skyrocketed. And it actually put us in a place where I think it was 1980, the inflation rate peaked at 13.3% on an annual basis. So we don't want to go that route. Well, if you think about what I said first, where inflation results when you've got too much money chasing too few goods and services, if you want to moderate inflation, you want to maybe slow down the rate of spending at the same time that you're doing everything possible to boost the production of goods and services. And so if I were advising the administration, I would say, let the Federal Reserve do their thing, because the Federal Reserve is trying to slow down spending. And again, what they are trying to do very precisely is thread a needle, slow down spending, but not enough to put us in a recession. But that's in the purview of the Federal Reserve. Now, the administration, what I would advise them to do, quite frankly, is to make a 180 turn on a lot of the policies that they've talked about over the last, since they've been in power. I would say do everything you can to make it easier for the oil industry to produce. Do everything you can to make it easier for truckers to drive around and businesses to invest. Don't raise taxes, particularly don't raise taxes on business income. Don't raise taxes on corporations or small businesses. Do everything you can to make it more, to increase the incentive for people to work, for businesses to operate, and for the economy to produce more.
I read just before we did this show that manufacturing costs hit a 43-year high. What kind of costs are they incurring? Because that plays into this, does it not?
A big problem there, of course, is your average manufacturer is making a product, let's say widgets, and they're buying the parts for that widget, sell elsewhere, maybe from foreign producers, and therefore we're seeing this problem in the supply chain. So like with me ordering my windows, I've had to wait 6 months because windows were just not available. So yeah, manufacturers, every manufacturer that I've talked to, every business, small business I've talked to, they say, yeah, they're having trouble finding whatever they need to do in order to make their business operate. Now, the administration can't fix this on a dime, but what I'm saying is the federal government does have a lot of regulations that they use to guide the economy. They have policy initiatives in various areas, and my perception of the Biden administration is they have been, I wouldn't say anti-business, but they wanted to control business in certain ways to make sure they get environmental outcomes that they want, to make sure they get labor outcomes they want, et cetera. And I respect those ideas. But if they want to generate a situation where we at least try to moderate inflation, pretty much all their policies need to be flipped over. And then they need more to stimulate business. So what I said, no more taxes, maybe even lower tax rates, moderate regulations. There was a regulation, there was an announcement just yesterday that in terms of infrastructure projects, the administration is imposing some new regulations on manufacturers and businesses who are involved in infrastructure in terms of telling the administration, well, what environmental impact is this going to have? And that takes a lot of number crunching, it takes a lot of time. So even regulations like that maybe have a positive purpose down the road, they're going to slow things down just at a time when we want to speed things up.
So what does Dr. Michael Walden foresee in the coming year or so? There's a lot of people, you mentioned the I word, but they've also talked about a word I haven't heard in a while, stagflation.
Yeah, I've actually, since late last year, so going on a half a year, I've been talking about the possibility of a recession at the end of this year, because If you look at every time in recent history the Federal Reserve has tackled inflation, try to reduce the rate of inflation, more times than not, we've had a recession. Now, they haven't all been severe recessions, but we've had a recession. So I've been telling my audiences that I speak to that maybe it's as much as a 1 in 3 chance that by the end of the year we'll have a recession. So that's something to be concerned about. I think if you're a business person, family, balancing your budget, you got to keep that in mind and try to answer the what ifs. What if we have a recession? What's that going to do to my income, et cetera? So I think that's possible. Now, stagflation is something that was invented. It was actually a term we hadn't heard until the late 1970s. It's where you have high inflation, but you also have a slowing economy. Usually when you slow the economy down, the benefit is you get lower inflation. But there can be a transition period where you're slowing the economy down, but it hasn't worked its magic yet on the inflation rate. And that's what happened to in the late 70s under President Carter. And that's called stagflation. We could be looking at that, Bill, summer, early fall, where we're sort of getting the worst of both worlds. We're getting a slowing economy, unemployment's going up, fewer jobs, but we still are living with high inflation. That's what we mean by stagflation.
Now, I'm going to hit you with another question. I'll need a quick answer because we're almost out of time, and that is wages. You know, people are making more money, but then you factor in inflation. Are they really?
Well, that's what you have to adjust for. And so if you've gotten a wage rate of, say, 6% over the last year, which is, you might say is good, 8.5% inflation, you're actually behind by 2.5%. So you need to always keep that inflation rate in your mind. And people know that. And I think that's one reason why people get so upset about inflation, because they might say, gosh, I'm getting more from my boss, but I still can't even buy what I need.
Doctor, enjoy your retirement. I'll keep pestering you, though. You're just a wealth of knowledge.
I have a new book out called Relaunch.
Oh, let me see. Yes.
How the family can perhaps see its economic situation revived in the post-pandemic economy. I talk a lot in here about remote work, remote education, being able to live outside of the expensive metropolitan areas. So this is now available. Go to Amazon, Relaunch by Michael L. Walden.
We'll have you back. We'll talk more about that too. Dr. Walden, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Take care.
Talk to you again.
Thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed today's show. If you have any questions at all or would like to know more, visit our website at RaleighCW.com and myrdctv.com. I'm Bill LeMay, and thank you for watching Community Matters, and we'll see you next week.